Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome to a crewed launch. Come on, crewed launches are awesome. I was unable to stream Crew-10, but I'm here for Crew-11, and these are always exciting. So the good news is everything's looking really good for this launch. So we'll get into a lot of that. I kind of start these crew ones a little bit early, but the good thing is I try to time it between. Basically, they already closed the hatch, so the hatch is closed and sealed, and that's all good to go. And they're going to start priming, the launch abort system and going for prop load here shortly. So I wanted to get through all of the things that we needed to get through, like our pre-launch preview and things like that before, before all that stuff happens. So I hope everyone's doing great. I hope everyone's having a really good summer. I'm having a great summer. Just been working on a long video here. Big surprise there. How is everybody? What's new? What's new in your world? What's new in your life? I hope all good things. But let's get started off here. If you want to know about this rocket launch, which I assume is the exact reason that you're here right now, we can go to just a little website that you may have heard of, everydayastronaut.com. We don't always do pre-launch previews anymore, but when there's a bigger launch such as this one, we do have this one. So, liftoff time, you can probably see in the top left of your screen. It's taking off here, hopefully, in about an hour and, 13 minutes or whatever it is. So, we're getting close already. Not even that, an hour and 9 minutes. Wait, is my countdown clock messed up? Speaking of. Yes, why? I'll look into it. I'll keep going with our pre-launch preview. It's not 13 hours away, and definitely not stuck at 13 hours away. That's for sure. Anyway, I'll fix that in a little bit here once we get to hanging out and listening to some updates. So the mission name for this is Crew-11. It's the 11th operational, commercial crew program with NASA. When they use commercial providers, specifically Crew-11 is specific to SpaceX. So this is the 11th operational crewed mission for NASA, which means that the customer for this is NASA, technically NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos, because there is a JAXA astronaut and a cosmonaut on here as well. So we have two NASA astronauts, which we'll talk about in a second, and then, yeah, it's cool. It's a mixture of veterans and newbies on this one. The rocket for this is the Falcon 9. Surprise, surprise. This is B1094-3. So that means it's the 94th Falcon 9 built. It's third launch. So, so we're already up to 94 Falcon 9s that have been built. And it's the third launch. It only flew 36 days ago. So that's pretty crazy. And I believe it first flew, was that the one that first flew on Axiom 4? Maybe. It's a pretty fresh booster, as you can tell. The launch location for this one is Launch Complex 39, and we used to say Launch Complex 39A specifically. We used to say back in the day, that was the only, of course it's Launch 39A, but don't forget they can actually launch humans now from Slick 40 as well. So, that is different. I can't just say, of course it's launched, because now we actually have two pads that can launch humans. Payload mass is technically unknown, but it's, around 12.5 tons or so, metric tons. Like 26,000 pounds or so. Pretty, standard for this type of, it's basically at the upper limit of being able to do a return to launch site landing. If it was any heavier going to low Earth orbit, 15 ton, probably even like 13.5 tons or something, it would not be capable of doing a return to launch site landing. It would have to land downrange on the drone ship. So that's just what you need to do in order to get more performance. Is just, you have to save a little bit more propellant to get you where you're going. And you don't have as much propellant reserves to be able to come back, do the boost back burn, and come back and land on land. So where is the spacecraft going? This is going to the International Space Station, which is at a 51.6 degree inclination at roughly 400 kilometers or so in altitude, so 260 miles. It's going to go up there. It's going to dock. It'll take about 39 hours to get up there. And if I recall, they're aiming for a February return, which, they're hoping to, I don't know, with this mission, I got a little confused in the press conference. If it was specifically this mission, they're hoping to get 8 months, or if they're working on certifying Dragon to do 8-month missions and make that the norm. I kind of missed that a little bit, but I think that there is the option of this going to 8 months. Is kind of what it sounded like, which would be, I feel like they kind of be smart. Let the crew go up there a little bit longer, as long as it's within safe operations, and you get a little bit more bang for your buck. If you're having to launch them every month, that's a lot more expensive than launching every year. So obviously you can find a happy medium between there. This is the 169th orbital launch of this year. That's kind of crazy. This is the 97th SpaceX mission of 2025. So wow, we're over the halfway point already. So we're 7, right at the end of 7 months out of 12, obviously. So they're on track to be well over almost 200. It'll be, at this rate, it's like 180 or so. That's crazy. The 94th Falcon 9 mission of 2025. So there's only been the 3. There's been 3. Is that correct? Because I think there's been 3 Starship launches, and does that include Falcon Heavy? Anyway, 500th Falcon recovery attempt, 537th overall SpaceX mission. That's crazy. 515-day turnaround for Dragon C206. Is that correct? This is also the 6th flight for Dragon, so the Endeavour. Now, here's what the crew is. Zena. So Zena's first flight, she was actually supposed to be on Crew-9. She was one of the 2 astronauts that unfortunately had to get bumped in order to make room to be able to bring back Butch and Sunny from the Starliner. I'll call it the Starliner mission, but I think most people know it as maybe almost the Starliner fiasco, where 2 astronauts were quote unquote stranded, even though they were always had some kind of return option home. They had to, and on Crew-9 had to send up 2 astronauts instead of 4, so they can make room for Butch and Sunny to come home on Dragon instead of Starliner. So Zena was one of the astronauts that unfortunately, her place, she had to give up her seat basically. So I don't remember if it was her or if it was maybe Stephanie was in tears a little bit because they made them co-host then the launch, and I remember it was very emotional for them to realize, wow, this I was supposed to be on this thing. And then we have Mike Fincke, I believe is how you say it, who is no rookie. He is a veteran. I believe he's flown on. Oh yeah, here we go. I think he's flown on 2 Soyuz missions and a space shuttle mission. Now, what's interesting about him is he was actually very involved in the development of the commercial crew program in general. Helped out with Starliner and also has just been around the development a lot of Dragon. But this is his first time to actually fly on Dragon, so that's pretty cool. Then we have mission specialist Kimiya, I believe is how you say that. Sorry if I'm absolutely not pronouncing that correctly, but yeah, another veteran here has flown to the International Space Station on Soyuz. So there we go. This is a JAXA astronaut. And finally, we have mission specialist Oleg Platonov, who is his first is a cosmonaut, Roscosmos cosmonaut. His first flight. Don't forget we still do. Regardless of what's going on in the world, we still do have a good working relationship for the International Space Station and the international collaboration between Russia and the United States and NASA specifically. And I think that's kind of what this whole thing is all about. Is actually this is the one thing where you all of a sudden are literally forced to live inside these tiny confines and be humans with each other despite political differences. So I think it's as important now as ever to be able to have that cooperation. To have those lines of communication open, those lines of literally trying to make sure that people are staying alive on a mission together, is uniting. I think we need more of that. I think that's great. So I'm happy. This is the International Space Station is likely only going to be around for less than 5 years now. So take it in while you can, and I think after that we'll likely end up with commercial space stations. Russia is talking about their own space station at some point after the ISS. So take it in while you can, because it won't always be like this. So let me get back to. So we do have a bunch of questions. I'll try to get a few up here. But right away, I wanted to thank Max Kemper for 42 months of membership. That's pretty impressive, and I thank you very much for that. You are a rock star, and thanks to all of you who support the work that we do. Before we get started here with the rest of going back to the stream, because we're going to be showing rockets here, and we're getting close to fuel prop load. We still have almost 20 minutes. Oh, now the clock is working. Countdown clock's working. Okay, we have a good 15 minutes before. I feel like the pre-launch preview, I always think it's going to take longer than it does. Then I'm like, we're already done with it. Did want to point out, though, before we totally get started, before I answer a bunch of questions, then listen in, we do have new colorways of, it's actually been our most popular shirt in the last year and a half, our orbital shirt. So if you would like to get that, you should check that out now, everydayastronaut.com. I've actually, ironically, we didn't, oh, and we also have it in kids, we finally have new kids shirts, by the way. Yeah, so we do have a new orbital shirt for kids as well, in youth sizes. So I know people have been asking for that kind of stuff. But we do finally have new colorways. Ironically, I've been wearing these two colorways in my own life for like a year. And then finally, when we did a restock of them, we decided to, you know, I was like, I really like these colors. I would really like to see them. So yeah, we have that. And then, and also we have, don't forget, we have our Falcon 9, which is very relevant today because it is a Falcon 9 launch. So, you know, our good old metal Falcon 9, don't forget about that, as well as our new Mercury set, Mercury Atlas and Mercury Redstone. Check those out in the shop as well, everydayastronaut.com/shop. And in fact, yeah, these are our launch day coupon codes. $25 off using coupon code launch day to get your hands on the new Mercury set and the Falcon 9 model rockets. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say for that stuff, because I want to listen in here, and then we'll see if there's any other questions we need to be answering. Well, they're actually in the middle of an interview, so let's answer the questions now, because in the middle of an interview is always kind of a weird time to punch in. So let's see here. How are we doing? Okay, so did I see the ISRO and NASA NISAR launch? Yes, the largest and most expensive. I was actually going to stream that one. Unfortunately, I could not, but that was one that I really wanted to do, and I was debating between these two. But it launched on a GSLV, the wonderful, pretty impressive rocket that, you know, that they fly out of India there. And yeah, it looks like that's going to be a really powerful Earth observation telescope, a really important instrument to be able to, you know, help measure and study our own planet, which, yeah, we need that. Spoony Spoon wants to know if I saw the Australian failure. Yeah, listen. Props. Because if you power slide on your first launch, I mean, I think Astra kind of has, you know, they kind of have it still the best power slide that's ever existed, where they, like, made a trench from the launch pad and then perfectly flew between, like, an opening and the gate and just let itself out. If you haven't seen the Astra power slide, it is one of the greatest launch moments, and the fact that the rocket stayed oriented, like, impressive guidance, because they were down an entire engine too. So you think about it, it was 4 out of 5. This was the next best, and what was cool about the Australian launch was that it started to lose thrust, and then it came down soft enough that it basically, like, did a relatively soft touchdown and tipped over. And I learned the reason it didn't blow up is I forgot that this is a hybrid rocket, so it actually has solid propellant with an oxidizer. So it's a hybrid rocket. So solids, you know, they actually are pretty stable. You know, they're not like a liquid propellant where you could drop you know, I mean, think about it. We ship around little rocket propellants all over the place. If you ever bought a model rocket engine, I mean, it's a lot tamer, a lot smaller. But, you know, you don't worry about dropping one of those and, oh no, if you drop it, it blows up. It's not like that. So it's similar in that manner ish. So yeah, that was awesome. Gilmore Space did a, you know, you gotta say it's a good thing when they get off the pad and don't blow the pad up. Seriously, I know people go, well, that's not that impressive, you know, or like there's people that will have something to say about that. But the reality is, you know, at this age, especially with the rapid, you know, innovative, you know, the way that we're trying to do these types of things these days, it's okay to just get something off the pad. If you get something off the pad, you learn a lot of data. You learn a lot about your systems, how they work. I mean, obviously, it'd been nice to probably get more flight data than about 5 seconds or whatever, but yeah, you got to hand it to him. That was at least exciting. That was at least very exciting. Let's see here. Oh, this is awesome. Johnny started Aerospace Master in April and is focused on liquid rocket propulsion. That is awesome. I think, yeah, that's, I actually was at Open Sauce, when was that, a week and a half ago or so now, which is a big, kind of a maker fair almost of sorts with panels and stuff, and it's awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was my second year going, and what was cool is I met so many people that were like, yeah, I'm going into aerospace engineering now, you know, and that was the most common thing I heard, especially for young people. If they're under, I feel like if they're under 20, that was the most common thing I heard was, hey, I've been watching your videos and or, you know, Scott Manley or Joe Bernard or whoever. And, you know, I'm going into aerospace engineering now. I'm gonna work at an aerospace company. So I thought that was really cool. That was really good to hear. That just kind of, yeah, brings a little smile to my eyes. So, yeah, let's see here. So, Wyoming Coast, Endeavor is spelled wrong on there. Oh, on our pre-launch preview. We might want to get on that if anyone is available to do that. It's probably me because I spell things wrong all the time. I'm actually, I'm middle letter dyslexia really bad. Like if there's like, especially at 6 digits for some reason. I used to work at a camera store when I was young, and there would be 6 digits that you had to like punch in because we didn't literally have a scanner. We had to type in, like if we're checking someone out, we had to type in the 6 digits. Literally every other time, the middle 2 numbers were flipped around, and that's when I realized, oh, this is probably why I'm not very good at reading either. I found out that's when I found out I have a mild form of dyslexia. So, probably me who misspelled it. Let's see here. Oh, this is awesome. Past Show 96 got the Aerospike one on sale, and you're very happy with it. Well, thank you so much for your support and your purchase of our merch. I always appreciate that. So why did the Israel rocket seem to leave the launch pad so much faster despite having a lower thrust to weight ratio than other rockets? I think scale has a lot to do with it. Like Starship looks like it gets off the pad slowly, but it's huge. You know, if you think about it, the amount of if something's accelerating, you know, if this was accelerating at 9.8 meters per second, you know, which is just 1G, and if I just dropped it, you would be, you know, it would cover its own length 10 times in that 1 second, right? It would look like it's absolutely flying. You know, if you zoomed in, it would be out of the frame in 1/10 of a second or whatever. I'm making up numbers here, but you get the idea. Now, if it's a huge rocket and it's doing that same thing, only a small portion of it will get through a camera frame in the same amount of time, or what, you know, from head to toe, it'll clear its own frame much, much slower. So the smaller the rocket, the faster the same relative acceleration will look. So GSLV is a good sized rocket, but it's still not as big as, you know, not as big as a Falcon 9, or not as big as, although it's a similar diameter, but it's not as tall. But yeah, I don't know why sometimes even just camera angles can make things look faster. Ironically, a lot of people shoot, you know, if you shoot a rocket really wide, like let's say you're really close to a rocket, I'll use 100 meters, so 300 feet, and you shoot a rocket wide, so you get it head to toe. You know, it's going to look like it's kind of leaning away, and it'll actually make the rocket look smaller, and ironically, it'll stay in frame longer because, you know, it's slightly tilted up in order to get the head to toe, and because it's wide angle, it'll stay in that frame longer, right? Now, if you punch back, let's say, or move back, don't punch back. If you move back to, let's say, 1,000 meters or 3,000 feet away, and you frame that same rocket head to toe, it'll be completely clear of the frame instantly. You know, like not instantly, but the second it's actually like, what am I trying to say? It's more, not parallax. What's the word? Orthogonal. Is that right? I don't remember. But yeah, so camera angle can have a lot to do with it as well. Is what I'm trying to say. Oh boy, Full Flow Aerospace. Tim, any news on the album? I have been working. That's actually what I've been working on between videos here and on the weekends. I'm really trying to get at least 6 or 7 songs done by this fall, I think is my goal. I'm getting really close. I have 4 completely new songs. I'm reworking Cryo to be, because when I played Cryo live I played it I think twice now. I played it at the Blue Moon, or at the Blue Ghost Firefly's Blue Ghost landing party. I played that event, and we played Cryo there, and then we also played it at Astro Awards, and we play it different, and I actually really like the live version a lot better than the original version. So I'm re-recording that so it can be re-released. I'm going to call it Cryogenic on the re-release, and then also I'm reworking Slow Orbit because that's a song that like Rocket Lab plays it in their in their videos, but I've never released it other than like SoundCloud forever ago. So it needs to be reworked really bad. So that's the news. It'll be done when it's done. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I don't miss. We are about 5 minutes away from fuel load. So why don't we're just in the middle of. I'm gonna put this up here, which is nothing. Not nothing. It's that was really rude. I'll put this up there. It's nothing. Sorry, it's not the rocket is what I meant to say. You can't actually see the rocket there in the bottom right, but they are at a really cool place here right outside. This is right next to the press site. There's like a large building that's for like VIPs and stuff. Right back. I don't know who actually like what the building normally is, but I know like during launches that's where family and friends will go often. It's like behind the press site, and it's like right next to the vehicle assembly building. Let's see here. This would be from Ryan Jones. Hey Tim, any plans to get the Future Martian Society cropped dyed hoodie not cropped? Would totally pick that up. I don't know. I think we were trying to just make something special more for the women in our audience, all smaller percentage of you than there are men. Trying to give them something unique and special. I don't know. I don't even think we stock that anymore. But we will see. Let's see. This is from Garrett Kiefer. Tim, I am studying aerospace engineering currently at 30 years old. Even after already getting 2 degrees in my early 20s, you are one of the inspirations why I went back. Thank you. That is so awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I love that people have literally completely changed their career paths. Yeah, just because they're excited. So it is that is really, really cool. All right, we're getting into. I want to listen because we're getting close to prop load and go no go poll. So I just want to make sure we're not missing out on that.
And accomplishes on their mission. But now let's bring it back to Mission Control here in Hawthorne, and the teams are continuing to prepare Falcon 9 and Dragon for launch. Falcon 9 is the first orbital class rocket that is capable of reflight. Together, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have completed more than 519 launches and over 448 reflights.
Incredibly impressive, and today the booster that Crew-11 will be using is going to attempt to land at Landing Zone 1, which is just down the coast from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This will be the 3rd flight of this particular first-stage booster after supporting a Starlink mission earlier and recently Axiom Mission 4. That was the successful 4th private astronaut mission to the International Space Station.
Rapid reusability drastically reduces launch costs, and it's the key innovation that is making space more accessible for the entire space industry as a whole. While this young booster is on its 3rd trip to space, we are working towards qualifying our fleet of Falcon boosters and fairings to support up to 40 missions each. For those of you following along, we're currently at 29 flights of a single Falcon booster, which is absolutely wild.
Just letting you know real quick, you might see me, I'm going to mess around with the clock to try to sync my clock with their clock because they're quite a bit, I'm quite a bit off from the real thing. It might be where it fits within the minute. So I'm going to sync up to them. So you might see it jump around a little.
A contract to develop the USD orbit vehicle, a modified Dragon designed to guide the space station through a controlled re-entry into Earth's atmosphere.
And when the time comes and the International Space Station reaches its end of operational life, which, trust me, it still has a lot of life to give right now, Dragon will help achieve that safety orbit. During the CRS-31 cargo resupply mission, Dragon successfully performed a reboost test for NASA that demonstrated Dragon's ability to change the station's orbit, and we'll see a similar test coming up, and that'll help inform plans for the upcoming commercial resupply mission number 33 with SpaceX, where Dragon will fly an extended mission and repeat that reboost demo with a modified trunk called the Boost Trunk. 10 meters per second. And testing these added capabilities will provide NASA with additional options for station operations in the coming years.
And yet another innovation that SpaceX is working on is the intravehicular spacesuits, or IVA suits, that astronauts wear during
Sorry.
astronauts while they're inside the spacecraft, versus the extravehicular EVA spacesuits that are
go for propellant load and launch.
Sweet.
For all operators in MCCX and Hangar X, both control rooms will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes and will remain in that state until LES is disarmed. All operators are to remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbit insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they will approve aborting the count. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual flight escape rules. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
There we go. They're going to be moving the crew access arm.
Arming crew arm for movement. Crew access arm retraction started.
There we go. And by the way, that can swing back much quicker
the crew access
in an emergency.
Rotate away from the Dragon.
Is the stream audio too quiet?
The Falcon 9 rocket. That was an incredible view, Nick, from up high, 275 feet in the air.
Yeah, and so as the arm goes away, that's really your first unobstructed view out those two windows inside the Dragon capsule. Unique to Dragon for Soyuz flyers, there were no your windows don't open until you get all the way up to orbit and come out of the fairing. So here you can see what the weather's doing outside for yourself.
And there they are, strapped in, Crew-11. Our next big milestone.
Crew access arm retraction complete.
As we hear that the crew access arm has completed its retraction.
Okay, let me know if that's better.
Our next big milestone is to have the astronauts drop their visors and start up for Section 7 in their operations.
SpaceX, you are go for Section 6. Close visors and arm launch escape system.
Dragon copies. Go for Section 6. Closing visors and arming LES.
They may have renumbered the procedures because in the past it was Section 7. That's we may not have gotten that update. But this is a critical moment indeed. And that crew access arm, it can rotate quickly back to Dragon in this moment.
Dragon, visors closed, arming LES.
In this moment, in between, before they have the launch escape system fully armed. Right?
Indeed. So the commands that are available to Zena and Mike at the displays, she's arming the launch escape system now. As that's armed, there's also a button that's going to show up that'll allow them to do an emergency egress, which will command that arm to swing over rather rapidly. And by the time you're out of your seat and ready to open the side hatch, the arm's in place so that you can get to the escape tower.
From the escape tower, of course, they would zip line down to safety, to waiting vehicles, and then exit the
launch escape system is verified armed.
Sweet. There we
the
go.
blast danger area.
So
now
we
have
that,
the
remember,
launch escape system.
This is a little bit different than what had been done, I guess, traditionally or in the past, is that they actually will arm the launch abort system before they even get fuel on the rocket. And that's actually really smart if you think about it. Loading propellant into the rocket is a bit of a dynamic event, right? There's a change. You're taking and loading up, millions or hundreds of thousands of liters or gallons. Insert your preferred thing, whatever. A lot. You're loading a lot of something at a reasonable pressure too. They have to get it in there and then they pressurize the tanks as well. So It is a dynamic event. There's a lot of stuff moving. There's a lot of, valves that have to be maintaining pressures, and a lot of things happening that, is a little bit more dangerous. There's two schools of thought. The way they used to do it with like the Saturn V, the space shuttle, the Atlas V still does this, even with Starliner on board, is they fuel the rocket up. They get it totally fuel and then in a steady, kind of a holding state, right? And they'll do that for, it'll be fueled for like 4 hours, basically, while it's sitting on the pad. And basically more or less topped off. Not quite up to flight pressures, but, topped off and in a stable state. Then they load the astronauts. Then once the astronauts are on board, they load the launch abort system, or they arm it. And if you think about that, you are then exposing not only the crew, but also the pad personnel to a fully fueled rocket. And again, it's relatively safe. We're talking statistically quite safe. But there's always a small chance that there could be a leak or some issue. And it could cause danger. You are putting a slightly higher risk on everyone involved in that process. And the way that it actually is, it's kind of funny because it wasn't necessarily a design decision. It's not like SpaceX went out and said, we think this is going to be the better way to do it. But kind of in hindsight, it turned out to, I think, be the safer way or the better way to do it. But the reason is the Falcon 9 has this very short window of propellants because they super chill the propellant in order to actually make these missions successful. Basically, once they start loading propellant, it's like as soon as that thing's full, within, 2 minutes, it's launching. So there's not any time to sit there and let the cryogenic liquid oxygen boil off, especially. That's the big one. You can't let that warm up, boil off, you lose performance. So they do this load and go. And so they're like, well, what do we do here? Because our rocket requires us to be able to load it at T-minus 35 minutes. And obviously we can't throw the crew in there in 2 minutes and then, within that window of once it's fully fueled and once it's ready to launch. There is no window. There's no window there, right? So, it takes an hour plus to actually get the crew in, buckled, do the door checks and everything on the hatch and all that stuff. So it takes a very substantial amount of time. So, they're like, well, what do we do here? And they propose this load and go. So you load the crew in and then you load the propellant and then you go. And so, again, I think in hindsight, it's going to be one of those things that's like kind of almost a no-brainer. It's like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. You're never exposing the crew or the ground crew to a fully fueled rocket. The other thing is, the crew, during that fuel up process now has the launch abort system armed. So they arm that before they even start flowing propellant into the rocket. I think that's pretty smart because if there were a catastrophic issue and all of a sudden, you had a tank buckle or something crazy, the crew isn't just tumbling to the ground. They can, the launch abort system would be armed and it would trigger and it would pull the crew safely away. So, I just thought that was kind of an interesting little convergence there. Let's take a few more questions here. Or let me listen and make sure we're not missing any, because they are about to get into prop load.
Our partners at the United States Space Force, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where Nick, of course, you in the Space Force, a brigadier general, have cleared the range. They are currently monitoring it, making sure that no one can get into the path of the rocket from down on the ground or in the ocean, for the reason that if anything were to happen and any equipment or any spacecraft parts were to come down on them, you wouldn't want to pose a risk to those below.
Yeah, public safety is important. But it highlights just the expansive team that even for this one place, the number of organizations that have to work together and they're necessary for success.
All right, let me answer
our 4-person crew, 2 NASA astronauts.
A few more questions. We've kind of gone through all this stuff. So let's get one here from Dino CR. Tim, thanks for all you do. Have you or do you have any plans to buy land down in Texas for SpaceX Starship launches? Are you renting now? Go, Dragon, go. I've owned Mars Studio B, where we stream from, since 2021. So I already have land, and ironically, actually, the cost of ownership down there is actually ridiculous. We might have to be scaling back a little bit. So I'm in the beginning stages of thinking about selling it, actually, ironically, which is really sad because I just financially would love to have property near there because I feel like it's...
begins the propellant flowing into the rocket.
Cool.
And now we are on an autonomous timeline counting down to 0 at 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a good milestone. It really signals that we're going to space.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, it's the clock is definitely ticking up to this point. The crew's been strapped in for a little more than 2 hours. There's been margin built into the schedule just in case, the side hatch doesn't pass its leak check or a suit.
Yeah, this is funny. They closed the hatch like an hour ago, and they basically chill for a full hour, but that's all just margin baked in case there's anything, let's say a seatbelt isn't buckling properly or something. They'd have time to check things out and make sure if there's they do suit leak checks, make sure communications are okay. There's a lot of checks they go through, and you want to have just some margin there because don't forget the International Space Station is a moving target. So there's this very short window when they can actually, hit that target, right? And in the case of a Falcon 9 with this load and go process, it's an instantaneous launch window. They have, basically every rocket has that's going to the International Space Station has to launch within about a second, because if you're the big deal is that it's not only where it is on its orbit, but also where the orbit is in line with Earth, right? So you have to nail it at that second in order to have your inclinations match, basically. That's that. So that's good. I'm glad we're go for launch. Obviously, things are looking really good. Anyway, back to Dino CR. Yeah, I am trying to figure out what's exactly next, because property taxes, electricity. We spend almost $1,000 a month on electricity for that place. Because I think we have a lot of gear running and things like that, obviously. I think a normal house down there would be probably half that. But it takes a lot, to manage that whole system. And we're trying to kind of strip things back and make it so when we do stream, we don't lose money. Because frankly, we've lost a lot of money, not only with monthly costs. If you factor in monthly costs, it's a lot. But if you factor in even like the latest, Starship Flight 8 and 9 so far, we're pretty, and I think 7, we're pretty major financial losses just because of the high costs of operating a stream like that. So we're trying to kind of figure out what to do next. And sadly, I don't want to let go of that property because I really do think like in 10, 20, 30 years, like having property there is probably going to be insanely valuable. Like I just think that's kind of sad, but at the same time, I can't afford it right now. So, let's see here. This is, Aaron Olson, are we on track for ISS replacement or alternatives? What steps? Oh yeah, there's multiple commercial providers that are working. Like Vast is literally, I think, launching this year already for their first, maybe not this year, but we have Vast working on it. We have Axiom working on it. There's a lot of, replacements to the ISS working on getting up into space in the next 2 years. I think by the 2030, by the time the ISS is retired, there should be 3 commercial replacements already in orbit. And I think then you'll kind of go, okay, right now we need it because right now it is a research station. You go up there, the whole thing is research. The whole thing is literally science for back here on Earth. It's medicine. It's obviously, cancer research, eyeball research, cells and plants and all these crazy things that you can study in a zero-G environment that you just really can't do the same way here. It's a really valuable and important thing right now, but I think once there's commercial options available, it'll make sense to deorbit it. But I want those to be going first before we make any hasty decisions for sure. Let's see here. Float Globe, I'm unfamiliar with that, but that's cool. Thank you for saying hi. Let's see. Joey Hernandez. Hey, Tim, is there a future space station that I'm most excited for? Axiom, Orbital Reef, etc. Honestly, right now, top of mind is Vast, just because Vast is getting really close. And it's a pretty ambitious, station as well. So, same with Axioms. But I don't know. I'm going to go visit Vast here this year. I'm going to see what they're all about because, I like to see hardware, and then it gets me more excited. Almost every time it gets me more excited. When I see real hardware and I see, I hear the people talking about it, how can you not help but get excited about it? So I'll go check them out, but that's top of mind for me. I would love to, Orbital Reef will be exciting, but I just don't know when they're going to find the time to do that Honestly, that's my only thing. It's like, when's Blue Origin going to be able to do that? Man, what are they trying to listen to? But yeah, you know, when are they gonna have time to do that on top of launching all of their Kuiper satellites? I don't know. This is from Aaron Olson. Any chance for a U.S.-China space station collab? Probably very unlikely. Maybe now with commercial stations, we'll see people from all nations, you know, going up there simultaneously, potentially on the same spacecraft even. But I don't think there has not been any official NASA and CNSA collaboration yet. Obviously, there have been with. I wouldn't mind some of that collaboration on things because I think it does open doors. It does open up lines of communication. Again, it kind of puts aside our political differences and helps people realize that hey, this is something. This is humans. We're all human. I think it's important, but I would personally love to see some kind of collaboration. Maybe a science mission would be a really cool one to collaborate on. But I don't think there's ever going to be or not anytime soon, going to be a Chinese and U.S. space station collaboration. Would be my personal bet. Jesse Cruz, weird question, but while they are waiting this whole time, don't they need to go to the bathroom? Not a weird question at all. I mean, they basically have about a 4-hour window where, I mean, they can go whenever they want. They're wearing MAGs, maximum absorbent garments, or whatever you call them, basically adult diapers. They are wearing those, so if you have to go, you can just go. But I think, you know, for the most part, for four hours, most people could wait if they needed to. So I think they plan around that. And yeah, let's see. Wyoming Coast. Tim, have you seen the progress on Starship Pad 39A? They're going crazy on it. It does seem like. So I was expecting to see Pad B or Pad 2 at Starbase be completed. And see that operational before they really committed to the pad there at 39A in Florida. I just assumed they'd want to see it work out, make sure they really like this design, because clearly they were about to do the Pad 1 style with the big pedestal and the water deluge. Clearly they feel like that was a temporary solution. They stopped progress there at Florida. Now they're almost done with Pad 2 at Starbase. And, you kind of go, are you sure this one's good? Like, is this one going to be, something you for sure are happy with and that can, last, especially if they're doing a rapid launch cadence of, potentially multiple times a day even? Can Pad 2 really handle that? So you definitely really, really, really hope that they can do that with this. So it is fun to see them ramping it up. They must be pretty confident that their new pad infrastructure can handle high launch cadence, but only time will tell. It is exciting though. It's really exciting to see that. Oh man, I have to jump over to Richard H. Astro Awards. Baby number 2 is catching her first live stream. Go Crew-11. Richard and Julie, well, thank you so much. Good to see you, and thank you for saying hi, and congrats on a new baby. And everyone, give Richard and Julie a congrats. That is so cool. That is awesome. Yeah, congrats. I remember you guys. That is so cool. And thank you so much. Really, thank you so much for the generous donation. And that's awesome. That's awesome. Let's see here. Dr. Dave, I talked about the Gilmore space launch a little bit ago, but basically I had to compare it to Astra's power slide. The famous Astra launch where it lost an engine right at liftoff and it just went straight sideways. It basically made a trench in the ground and then let itself out the gate. Like there's an opening in literally there's a fence with one random opening. The rocket went straight out it. It was hilarious. Still one of the coolest rocket failures of all time. This one did a bit of a power slide, but it is really interesting how it happened to, land or come down fairly soft. And the reason, I mentioned this earlier already, sorry. The reason that it didn't explode is because it had solid propellants on board. So it's a hybrid rocket engine, meaning it has a solid propellant and then a liquid oxidizer or a gas oxidizer. And that's, so that way you can kind of, turn it on and off more or less. And at the same time, the main part that, you worry about having explode is your fuel coming in contact with oxygen. If the fuel is solid propellant and it just lands in a big chunk, you turn off the ignition source and you turn off the oxidizer, it's quite inert and pretty crazy that just like landed with a thud and didn't really go boom right away. So very fun to see. A pretty crazy and unique failure situation. What is all the sound? Sorry, I'm still listening into them, and it's confusing me. Andrew Morrison, why isn't the launch escape system be armed before the arm pulls back? Do they have no escape route for that few seconds? That's actually a pretty good call. I think. I mean, yeah, they don't have an escape route for a few minutes there, but there's nothing happening. You know what I mean? There's no propellant on board. There's nothing. I mean, of course, you look back to Apollo 1 and the Apollo 1 fire, something like that, but, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's probably because, think about it. Not but if the crew access arm is over, hangs over, let me go full screen here for a second. It kind of hangs over the hatch. If they did the launch abort system, it would hinder the liftoff of the crew capsule. So they have to pull it back enough that the fins can clear. Because if you broke off a fin, that'd be really bad as well, because that is an aerodynamic stability thing. Because don't forget, when it lifts off, the center of mass is way up here. And so they have to have these aerodynamic fins in order to make it so it flies straight. And then the Super Dracos, there's 4 sets of a pair. So there's actually 8 Super Dracos, and they can throttle. So they use differential thrust to help steer in a launch abort system. So in a launch abort scenario. So they need to move that arm out of the way before they even arm it. So if they do have to use it, the arm doesn't get in the way and hinder the abort process. I would guess that's why. Let's see here. Let's see. I saw Please Good Music says that they want to embarrass your girlfriend. So, hi, Darlene. Thanks for watching. Have I considered trying out the new Shepard ride? Well, yeah, I've thought about it. I just don't have $500,000 or whatever it is sitting around at all. So I actually almost had an opportunity to fly with the Moondau crew. They chose someone to go up on Shepard, and it came down to myself and a YouTube channel, Dude Perfect, and I went into. They kind of had like a final meeting where they asked us all to give them a pitch, and I actually just said, please pick Dude Perfect. I just think their reach is a lot bigger especially with young people, and I think that has a lot more potential to make a bigger impact. And I was right. Their video was incredible, and seeing Kobe go up and fly was awesome. I mean, it was like, I think that had a lot bigger impact than anything I could have done. I would have been like, oh, you can see the BE-3 is beginning to thrust. I would have just been a dork, and it probably wouldn't have reach too much beyond my own audience, as opposed to when Dude Perfect flew, that reached a very big audience. They're like the 8th biggest YouTube channel or something. So it was silly for me to even try to, I was so excited that they were in the runnings and that they were going to fly. So I pushed for that big time. So I would fly, though, of course. That looks like a lot of fun. And it looks like a really cool experience. But I would also rather, personally, if I'm going to fly, I'd love to fly for like a week, Hemanth, so when is the next flight of Starship, and are there any recent updates? Yeah, the recent update is right now. We actually might be going into testing of the ship now, finally. So that's great, because they're having to do that on the main launch pad. That's probably going to be happening sometime today, maybe right now. Actually, I don't even have it pulled up. But yeah, the fact that that's going on is really a really good sign that they are tracking probably sometime here in August. With it being a new test procedure and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. My guess would be like mid to late August. I don't think it's going to be any time in the next week or two. But yeah. Aaron Olson, am I going down for the next New Glenn launch? I don't have a plan to yet. I really do want to see New Glenn, though, because I think the view of it would be amazing from, especially from Cape Canaveral. You're only 6 miles away or something, so 6 or 7 miles from the launch pad, and it's the largest rocket flying from the Cape right now. So it'd be really, really cool to see. I do want to see that for sure. I don't think it'll be the second one, though, for me. It probably won't be until spring when I'd have an opportunity to do something like that. Please, good music. With the Australian launch, it'll be interesting to see them see the find in the crash with so much intact. Yeah, it'll be. I think what they're saying is, it will be really interesting that the rocket's basically just like gonna still be a rocket, just like probably broken apart in a few pieces. It won't be shrapnel everywhere, or not as much shrapnel as you might expect, and that might be cool. Necronom says, put together a Mars budget and maybe the community can help keep it active and expenses covered. I mean, the reality is, we've looked into it quite a bit, and really about a year, I called for about a year ago to maybe look into us moving on from it because it was very expensive. And the reality is the trending of Starship launches becoming more and more normal and routine and mundane, and the numbers are trending in the wrong direction and the expenses are trending in the opposite direction. And we already, almost a year ago, went to the point where even per launch basis was not really profitable. And I can't lose thousands of dollars to cover rocket launches. I literally can't afford that. And we can stream in almost the exact same way. You would never know the difference. The only difference would be these 200, 400 pixels behind my head could be here in Iowa. I'm in Iowa right now. And if I was watching a Starship launch, I had to cover the last one.
It is proceeding nominally. We do have one watch item that has popped up. There is a pop-up storm cell that is just to the north of the pad. Currently not violating any LCCs, but we are monitoring this particularly closely as it's moving offshore. We'll let you know if it starts trending towards blocking launch today, but again, not expecting that at this time.
Dragon copy zone. We've got a healthy Dragon, healthy Falcon. We're proceeding towards launch. Only watch item is a storm cell that is north of the pad moving offshore. We'll continue monitoring, but otherwise looking great.
That's a good readback.
Okay.
And great communications there from the team here at SpaceX on the ground in Hawthorne, monitoring. What we've been keeping an eye on throughout the broadcast here today is that weather popping up, but everything else looks strong and healthy. The Falcon 9, the capsule itself, and the crew, they're still ready to roll as we're now about 17 minutes away from the launch. Now, talking back to Falcon 9, and what remarkable happens is what happens in flight.
Okay, cool. Just making sure we weren't missing anything there. They're going back into their spiel. So, yeah, but, back to Mars, the reality is, I did stream Flight 8 from right here, and it was great. I feel like I'm not missing it. It adds, I think, on the first big ones, like, the first couple launches when it's exciting. The first catch, actually, I ironically missed the first catch, but the second catch, my first time seeing a catch, to be able to be there and film in person is awesome. But it also costs a lot for me to go down there. It costs a lot to have a team come down and handle those. So we're trying to do things a lot more remote. NSF and Lab Padre have done an amazing job of doing so much stuff remote with a few local incredible assets like Jack Beyer and the likes, but DOS. But we have to make a change because it's unattainably expensive. So yeah, the good old days of Starship launches, having 3 million views or whatever and 300,000 people watching congruently, those days are probably over until like humans go to Mars or something, because ironically Starship, the only other one that would be really that exciting will be visually, because they'll almost all look the same for a long time, will be HLS when they launch the human lander, but it won't even have humans on it. You know what I mean? It will launch uncrewed. So I think the next really exciting where it's like world changing, the world's tuning in to see this, is when humans fly to Mars, and I don't give that any shot until about 2030. So until at least 2030 probably, but probably more like 2035 or 2040. But the decision unfortunately has already been made. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate the support. I really appreciate everyone. Times have been weird lately, to be honest. Just with kind of changing of a lot of things, and with Dear Moon being canceled, and I feel like there's just a lot of division and stuff, and I'm trying to just kind of focus on things that I enjoy. So I've been playing a lot of music lately. That's something that I've always done my whole life, and letting go of Mars is not fun. It wasn't the decision I'd like to make, but I think just financially and I just have to. So if you want a beautiful property right next to Starbase, stay tuned. Overmotor, thank you so much for the $5. Thoughts once we have a moon base, setting up a launch site from the moon directly to Mars and still using super heavy, more propellant for deceleration. So launching from the moon, the biggest thing is you'd have to have a rocket that relies, that has that you can make propellant from the moon. The moon, it's only you can get metals off the moon. You can get helium-3, which would be really cool. You can get water. There's supposedly a lot of water actually, but I don't know if you have enough to do these huge colonies and stuff. I don't think it makes. You wouldn't want to fly super heavy to the moon. You wouldn't want to do a super heavy launch to the moon. You would build a much more, you don't need nearly as much thrust. You don't need nearly as much propellant. You don't need nearly as much delta V. You want vacuum optimized engines because you're in a vacuum. So you'd build a purpose. If you were to develop a moon launch system that was, especially trying to get from the moon to Mars, for colonization or whatever, or just for resupplies and all that kind of stuff, you'd want to build a dedicated system. You'd likely want to use nuclear thermal, nuclear electric, use, maybe even somehow find a way to do a powerful enough, a light boost of a small amount of chemical propulsion, then go right into ion or something, or xenon or something. You'd want to do something completely different. You would not want super heavy launching from the moon. It would, besides, not to mention, think about every time that thing took off, the debris cloud that would cause, even if it wasn't, even if it had a proper dedicated launch pad, you'd have to divert all the flames. You'd have to have a U-shaped flame trench that made sure all of the flames in the exhaust were shooting, not flames, exhaust, would be shooting up and away, because you would not want to be throwing lunar debris from super heavy all over the moon. That would destroy everything. Oh, that'd be bad. Let's see here. Anthony R. What happened to Luna? Did I miss something? So Luna, we actually are selling it because we moved everything from Luna, which was, by the way, if you're unfamiliar, it was our van. We have this production van. And the van has always run the show at Mars, our studio space. But we outgrew Luna. We couldn't fit all of our equipment in it, and we could only fit 2 operators in it, so it was extremely cramped. So we have a 16-foot trailer now. We're calling it Tuna because it's 2, but I hate that name. We're not going to always call it that. We'll do a video here showing you kind of how we did everything, because it's insane. It's like a proper broadcast vehicle. It was purpose built to be able to do what we're doing now, to be able to film. Artemis 2 is a big one that I really want to catch and in person and have really good coverage with. We did Mark Rober's launch at SatGus with it. That was the inaugural launch. So that's definitely something that I think it's really, really cool. And it's a the fact that we built this thing in 2 or 3 weeks was nuts. So I'll have to show you guys more of it, but let's see here.
Keeping our eyes to the skies. Also, this is a first for our broadcast team right here. An astronaut who once sat right here where Nick is sitting as a commentator is now minutes from flying to space. Zena Cardman was once in this very seat, the one that Nick Hague is sitting in now, less than a year ago. She was supporting Nick as he launched with Crew-9. She was originally set to command that mission, but when Crew-9 had the shift and had the change up of assignments, she had to step back to help get the team off the ground. And here's what she said, Nick, after watching you and your crew go into space.
Every crewed launch that I have ever watched has really brought me a lot of emotion. This one today was especially unique. I think it was hard not to watch that rocket lift off without thinking, that's my rocket and that's my crew. But I also know that I'm not the only person who can think that. Of course, we have Stephanie Wilson here today, but I mean, there are many, many people who made this mission happen, and there are people on orbit who will be taking this capsule home. And it makes me very proud to know that I am one of many people who can say, that's my crew, that's my rocket. Makes me really proud, makes me feel very connected to this mission that we all get to take part of. Go Crew-9.
I was talking about that earlier, where you could tell she got emotional. So that was Crew-9. That's Zena, who is the commander of this mission. she got pulled from the mission to be able to make room for the two Boeing astronauts that were on the ISS, Butch and Sunny. So, yeah, I remember watching that and going, I almost just felt so bad that they had her on, that she had to.
It's the individuals who make this endeavor great. To each of you at SpaceX and NASA, to our partners at JAXA and Roscosmos, to family, friends, and mentors, you fly with us today. Arigato gozaimasu. Spasibo большое. Thank you. With gratitude and focus, Crew-11 is ready.
And more words.
Crew-11, sentiment is the same on the ground from everyone staying here. We have enjoyed working with you in the preparation for the mission. Looking forward to doing the same in flight. Good luck. Enjoy the ride.
And more words from Zena Cardman. We just heard from her live.
Yeah, it's like I started the show.
All right, it's getting closer. T-minus 9 minutes. I got to pay attention because time's kind of flying here. Let's see here. So we have a few more questions from Dino CR asking, if the rocket launches with winds higher than desired, what happens to the rocket? Well, the simple answer is they don't launch if the winds. That's a scrub, for wind conditions. They launch weather balloons, so they know what the upper level winds are like, because that actually changes a lot by altitude. The winds can change directions very quickly. You can have these wind layers where you have winds flying really, fast this way, and then all of a sudden, only 5,000 meters away, the winds are going the exact opposite direction. So those wind shears, those changing in wind directions, can actually snap a rocket in half. So that's actually one of the problems with the Falcon 9, because it's not really that big of a problem because it's flying all the time. But because it's very fine. So that's the fineness ratio is how tall it is versus how wide it is. So because of that, it actually has a lot of potential for bending momentum, right? So it actually, if it's steering really hard against wind forces, it could, there is a structural limit there where it could eventually snap, which is why they just don't fly they don't fly in that case. They would scrub the launch and go for another attempt. And they have pretty conservative bounds on that too. It's not like, it's 70, the rocket will break if there's a 70 mile an hour wind or whatever. This way, and then if it's whatever, and they're like, well, it's 69, we're good to go. There's definitely a bound there where it's like we don't, we can't exceed this bending force with these wind types and the thrust vector compensating by this much, whatever it might be. And so they'll create these bounds. They'll say, here's the structural limit of the rocket. Let's go 3 times below that or whatever, and so they won't fly the rocket in anything that exceeds that. But long story short is, if they were to fly outside of those bounds, the rocket could break, which is...
And right on cue for the engine chill that has begun. And those first stage abort zones, again, 1A and 1B for that first stage. Next are 2A through E. Those will come into play once the second stage kicks in, but we'll only hear that 2A call. And diverting a little bit from the other naming systems, we'll hear the call Shannon, which refers to Shannon, Ireland. This means that the crew could target off the coast of Ireland if they needed to abort late in that second stage burn. You'll hear these different calls throughout the flight uphill along the way, and the performance callouts from the guidance, navigation, and control officer, and also the propulsion lead. So we're coming up on T-minus 6.5 minutes. We heard that the engine chill is started, and that means that small trickle of fuel making its way into the engine to prime it
Stage
for
1 fuel load
launch.
complete.
So we already heard that stage 1 engine chill has already started, which is a key process that prepares the engines for flight. Right now, the prop in the tanks is isolated from the engines. Sorry. The prop in the tanks has already started trickling into the Merlin engine pumps as the engines are chilling for the start sequence. And we do this because the super chilled and densified liquid oxygen is really, really cold. And we use this process to bring the engine hardware down to a cooler temperature before flowing all of the LOX and propellant into it during flight. At liftoff, Falcon 9 is consuming 700 gallons of fuel per second. So engine chill helps us to prevent thermal shock and ensures nominal engine performance. Shortly, coming up, we should also hear the call out for stage 1 RP1 load completion.
As you mentioned, engine chill is now underway. We're getting ready for those next call-outs that'll be coming up here shortly, as we are now almost 5 minutes away from liftoff, and that's where they're going to configure for terminal count. And that will be a call for Dragon to configure to terminal count and transition into internal power.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
And at this point, the Dragon onboard computers...
is in configure for terminal count.
Perfect. Right on schedule, and those onboard computers now taking control of the spacecraft. You also heard the call out for pressurizing to give extra structural stability for the rocket as it makes its way uphill. So we're approaching now 4.5 minutes away, and then around that time, you'll hear, you mentioned it there, the strong back retract, and that'll allow provide access to Falcon 9's fueling lines and umbilicals for prop load and different gases being loaded on board. But right now, everything's starting to wrap up, and Somya, it's exciting to get to this.
Strong back retract has started.
Exciting to get to this point of the countdown. As you heard it right there, the strong back retract is on its way.
So you'll see the claw open up, and the rocket will be freestanding. Freestanding. One of two. And two of two.
So we have a great view on our screen of the clamp arms opening up just around stage 2 under Dragon in preparation.
It feels like it's like
for
when a rocket's at this stage and it's basically fully fueled at this point. It's getting really close, or just finishing topping it off. But I love how alive it feels, because it's having to breathe out these cryogenic propellant. There's oxygen, liquid oxygen inside those tanks that's boiling off, and they're having to vent it out. You just see it, being active and breathing. It just feels like this living, breathing monster. And something about that I just love it. But now you see the strong back that takes the rocket out from horizontal, lifts it up to vertical, then supports it during the entire loading process and during the entire time prior to launch, is now retracted. And that's the further back, it only retracts a few degrees prior to launch. And right at liftoff, it does swing back to about 45 degrees. So, yeah.
That isn't smoke.
Stage 1, LOX load complete.
That's condensation, as stage 1 liquid oxygen loading has been completed. As liquid oxygen warms slightly inside the tanks, some of it boils off, and that gas is vented to manage pressure. When the vented oxygen hits that warm Florida humid air,
in terminal count and on internal power,
it instantly condenses into those clouds. As you just now heard, the Dragon now in prop load complete, on into internal power. It's fully fueled. The rocket and Crew-11 are ready for liftoff. And this rocket now transitioning into internal power. The gas closeouts will also begin to purge all the feed lines and allow Falcon 9 to be isolated. And then they'll get vented overboard through the umbilicals and strong back retract.
So coming up in just under 20 seconds, we should hear the call out that LOX load will be completed on stage 2, which will mean that there will be 1 million pounds of propellant loaded onto Falcon 9 at that.
That storm cell from this shot looks directly overhead, but I'm sure it's not. But it just looks, that looks ominous, but I'm sure it's fine. So that is one of the things the range right now
LOX load complete
is going to be looking
now that
for.
That's
so
complete, we will vent down the TE, which will produce a white cloud off the side of the rocket, which is totally normal and expected.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Auto idle puts that rocket in a state the flight computers understand before it takes over, and that's making sure the transition to the final countdown is smooth and all the flight computers on board are in sync with each other and configured for launch. We're now 90 seconds away from
Ground
launch.
gas closeouts are started. Expect loud venting.
And there's the gas closeout that Somya was just talking about, and now inside 80 seconds from the launch of NASA SpaceX's Crew-11.
I hope those clouds aren't hindering everyone's view from the Cape. Probably will be.
On countdown net, hold. We are standing down for violation of weather rules.
No!
All tower sequences aborted.
It's scrubbed. And I can't go tomorrow. No! Why does this always happen to me? Scrubbed. Dang it. All right, so
as you've heard over the nets, that we did just have a hold called at the T-minus 1 minute mark.
And that hold due to weather, that was something that we've been keeping an eye on. Our team here in SpaceX and Hawthorne, as well as in NASA, we're monitoring that throughout today's broadcast in preparation for launch. But Unfortunately, standing down looks to be the case as the weather has created that violation, but we'll continue to monitor and await for the news officially from the teams on the ground as that weather violation looks to come into play for launch today.
Dragon SpaceX, bad luck on weather there. We just got clipped by a cumulus cloud right over the pad, so ended up scrubbing for weather. With that, you are go to proceed to 5.100 for launch scrub. We'll begin offloading the rocket.
Dragon copies all 5.100. Too bad, but we'll be ready next time.
Oh, she sounds disappointed. You can hear it in her voice. 5.000. Poor Zena.
And there you heard the call up to the crew that unfortunately the weather just not playing alongside with today's excitement of a launch for NASA SpaceX's Crew-11. But we have mentioned a couple times throughout the broadcast today that there are backup opportunities starting as early as tomorrow, 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time.
Well, you know what? I can still do tomorrow. 11:40. So, and it moves earlier. I can still do tomorrow. Okay, that's good. Okay, well, I guess we'll pick back up tomorrow. But let's answer a few more questions, then I'm gonna get back to work, and we'll do this. But this is a great one right here. This is a fun classic one. So, Kuldar, has any rocket got hit by lightning while going up? Yes, absolutely. Apollo 12. If you've ever heard of SCE to aux, that famous saying of like you might see it on T-shirts, or you might have just seen people say it as like a. It's kind of got, you know, lore to it at this point, but SCE to aux. That's because Apollo 12 got hit by lightning, I think twice, actually, on ascent. And it's actually because, especially with Falcon 9 similar, but Saturn V on its first stage, you know, it runs on RP1, or basically kerosene. So one of the main things entrailed in its exhaust is carbon. So there's basically a really good conductor. It's basically flying like a giant tether of carbon up into a cloud. So they flew it basically straight into a storm cell, and that just created a perfect path for lightning to be able to strike the rocket. And it took out some systems, and one person in mission control happened to know that you could reset and go to this auxiliary system for SCE. I forget what that actually means, SCE, but flip that switch. They were literally about to abort the mission, and one of the people on console goes, SCE to aux, SCE to aux, and they basically flipped SCE to aux. They remembered that they could do this, and it would reset and go to an auxiliary system, and the mission continued. So, yeah.
Side, we were planning to watch the launch right there from a nice viewing spot here at the press site, the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. So,
yeah, that's exactly the case. It is fully scrubbed, and it's not launching today. And this, I'm shocked because it's actually like an 85% go for weather this morning. So I was really like, here we go. We got this. This is no big deal. And here we are. Of course, that would be the case. But I'm going to work on getting out of here because, like I said, I've got work to do. So the next launch window is tomorrow, almost the same time, a little bit earlier. It shifts about 20 minutes earlier on these ISS launches. So, yeah, you're welcome, Dino CR. Thank you for watching. Oh, there we go. Signal conditioning equipment. That's what SCE stands for. I did not actually realize that. I don't know if I've ever actually, So they conditioned so basically the signal to the vehicle from the ground probably got fried or frazzled, and they were able to. Interesting. Okay, so then they switched it over to the auxiliary system for that. Very cool. All right, everybody. That is. I'm gonna get on out of here so I can get back to work and try to make some stuff for you guys. Let's see. Wait. Well, just make sure I didn't see anything that I missed in Discord here. Cool. We are good. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Sorry to the crew of Crew-11 for now. Hopefully, they get a flight tomorrow. Although tomorrow has some potential scrub conditions, I know, downrange for the abort zones, because they do have to make sure weather's clear. If they were to abort, that they could still recover. That they could recover the rocket or the capsule.
Dragon copies. We're looking at about 50 minutes for prop offload, so 1700 ETC for the rest of 5.100 and seat rotation.
Good readback.
Cool. All right. Well, my friends, again, thank you for watching with me. Here we go. Apollo Lightning Strike is on YouTube. So, watch that. When you get out of here, just go search Apollo 12 Lightning Strike. You can see it there. There's video of it. It's pretty wild. And you can learn all about that. And you can know why they scrubbed for today, because it is not smart to fly right into a storm cell. So, all right. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. If you're bored, watch some videos. If you haven't watched my latest video about why they don't use the strong back to yeet the rocket off the pad at 3G, maybe give that a watch or rewatch if you haven't watched it, or if you've already watched it. Thanks for hanging out. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Goodbye, everybody.